Grief is a universal human experience. It's the emotional suffering you feel when you lose someone or something you love. It's a natural response to loss. Grief can be overwhelming. It can impact your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Models of grief provide a framework for understanding this complex experience. They offer a roadmap for navigating the emotional landscape of loss. While everyone grieves differently, these models can help make sense of the common experiences associated with grief. Understanding the stages and tasks of grief can be incredibly beneficial. It allows you to normalize your feelings. It helps you realize you're not alone in your experience. The Kübler-Ross model, often referred to as the 5 stages of grief, is widely recognized. It was introduced by Swiss-American psychiatrist Elizabeth Kübler-Ross in her 1969 book, On Death and Dying. Denial. This is the initial stage. It involves resisting the reality of the loss. You might think, this can't be happening to me. Example, refusing to accept a loved one's terminal diagnosis. Anger. As denial fades, anger might emerge. You may direct this anger towards yourself, others, or a higher power. Example, lashing out at family members after a loved one's death. Bargaining. This stage involves attempting to negotiate with a higher power to change the outcome. Example, promising to live a better life in exchange for a loved one's recovery. Depression. This stage brings deep sadness and despair. It's essential to allow yourself to feel these emotions. Example, experiencing a loss of interest in activities you once enjoyed. Acceptance. This stage isn't about feeling okay with the loss, it's about acknowledging the new reality and learning to live with it. Example, finding ways to honor a loved one's memory while moving forward with your life. It's crucial to remember that these stages are not linear. You may not experience all of them, and you may not experience them in this order. J. William Worden, an American grief expert, introduced his 4 tasks of mourning model as a task-based approach to grieving. These tasks represent the work that needs to be done to adapt to the loss. Task 1. Accept the reality of the loss. This involves fully understanding that the loss is real and permanent. Example, visiting the grave of a loved one to reinforce the reality of their passing. Task 2. Experience the pain of grief. It's important to allow yourself to feel the pain, sadness, and other emotions that come with grief. Avoiding these feelings can prolong the grieving process. Example, talking to a therapist or support group about the difficult emotions you're experiencing. Task 3. Adjust to an environment without the deceased. This task involves adapting to life without the person you've lost. This may mean taking on new responsibilities or finding new ways to cope. Example, learning to manage household finances after the loss of a spouse. Task 4. Find an enduring connection with the deceased in the midst of embracing life. This involves finding ways to keep the memory of the deceased alive while moving forward with your life. Example, creating a scholarship fund in honor of a loved one's passion for education. Worden emphasizes that these tasks are not a checklist to be completed in order. You may find yourself revisiting these tasks multiple times throughout your grief journey. Section 4. Comparing the model's stages versus tasks. Both Kübler-Ross and Worden's models provide valuable frameworks for understanding grief. However, they differ in their approaches. Kübler-Ross focuses on the emotional stages of grief, while Worden emphasizes the tasks involved in adapting to loss. The stages of grief provide a language for understanding and normalizing the emotions you might experience. They highlight the commonality of grief reactions. The tasks of mourning provide a more active approach, focusing on what you can do to work through your grief. Neither model is inherently better than the other. They simply offer different lenses through which to view and understand the experience of grief. Section 5. Navigating grief, finding your path. It's important to remember that grief is a personal and individual experience. There is no right or wrong way to grieve. What works for one person may not work for another. The key is to find what works best for you. Both Kübler-Ross and Worden's models can serve as guides. They offer a starting point for understanding and navigating your grief. You can use these models to identify where you are in your grief journey and what you might need to do to move forward. Remember to be patient with yourself. Grief takes time. There is no set timeline for healing. Allow yourself to feel your emotions, and don't be afraid to ask for help when you need it. Section 6. Conclusion. A journey, not a destination. Grief is a journey, not a destination. It's a process that you move through, not a problem to be solved. Understanding the models of grief can provide comfort, validation, and guidance. Remember that you are not alone. By embracing the complexities of grief and seeking support when needed, you can navigate your own unique path toward healing and growth. Allow yourself to grieve, to heal, and to find meaning in the midst